Please, if you are a Yoruba man and you're watching this video, know that this video is it's not intended to cast aspersions to the Yoruba race, but to point out to what is happening, because when you are doing something to somebody, don't cry when the same thing is done to you in the future. What INEC is doing is very, very bad. INEC is not presenting itself as an umpire in a fair playing ground. When the current INEC chairman was installed, I was like, a Yoruba man as INEC chairman, and the president a Yoruba man with these characteristics of having Yorubas occupying almost all parastatals. Is this not going to be injurious to our collective well-being? But I think my fears are now founded with what INEC is doing. First, it is the issue of revalidation of voters card, where our voters card has already been designated as a permanent property. But they're asking you to go and revalidate it so that there will be reasons to, disenfranchise people who have, or people who are already having voters card, permanent voters card. That we have caught that game. Now they are attacking the African Democratic Congress, ADC party. A process that was originally and legally followed through to arrive at the leadership of the ADC. INEC is pretending not to recognize them. Look, I want to tell Amupiteku, or whatever your name is, you may be living in the Stone Ages where you can do small detraction and small maneuvering that can, escape the scrutiny of Nigerians. But this is the internet age, for crying out loud. It is very difficult to pull the wool over the citizens' eye. Even those we thought, even the Aboki that used to hold transistor radio, they listen to news. They now have Android phone and they are well abreast of what is happening. So there's nothing you can do that will go unnoticed. This thing that you are trying to do to wipe out or shake out all opposing parties, strong oppositions, to make Tinubu and his APC the only candidates and the only party of choice, is not going to work. You are setting a precipice. You are putting Nigeria under a conundrum that will eventually exacerbate and catalyze the most unprecedented revolution that will tear this country apart. Let it be known that when this happens, it is you and Tinubu and your Yoruba dogmatic, tribalistic, whatever stance that brought Nigeria to its knees. We are not asking for anything more. We are not saying our candidate must be the president. We are just saying, give us a free and fair playing ground. But don't take our request as being stupid or being foolish. We are also capable of violence. Trust me, we are capable of violence. This is not 2023 that you secretly announce presidential results in the night when people are sleeping. This time people will not sleep. This time you will not rig this election. Look, you can take that to the bank. Amupitekun, INEC chairman. You will not rig this election. You will not rig this election. You will not. Any attempt to rig, if you rig, will be met with a cataclysmic catalyst that will shake this country in a manner that this country has never witnessed. I can assure you that. In a situation where the country is already volatile, where life no longer means anything, life is cheaper than a sachet of granite. Terrorists moving everywhere. Life is no longer, look, take your time. Take your time. All our eyes are on INEC. And let me tell AP supporters, violence is not a monopoly of, what is this, Igboho or Oluomo. We all have, Oluomo no get 3 hands. We all have hands. We are going to vote peacefully. I am not going to revalidate my voter's card. I have no intention to revalidate anything. I'm not going to do that. And I urge Nigerians not to go and revalidate what they already have as what was issued to them as permanent. But we assure you that if you conduct a peaceful election, we will go there peacefully, drop our votes, and watch the votes count. But if you have made up your mind that Tinubu must be our president, whether we like it or not, I can assure you that we will give you fire papaya, according to our brothers in the north.
Indeed, but clearly a number of people are not happy this morning, and top amongst them will be the leadership of the African Democratic Congress. At least they were leaders up until, or maybe they're still leaders, maybe just not in the eyes of INEC up until yesterday or the day before, 2 days ago. Up until 2 days ago, they were leaders in the eyes of INEC, and they were delisted or removed from the portal of the Independent National Electoral Commission, and they are fuming. They are very upset about it, and they are asking or calling for the resignation of the INEC chairman, saying they have lost confidence in him. I'm sure you have been following the development, wondering perhaps how it's all going to end. What do you make of this?
Well, I've been following these developments acutely.
Acutely?
Yes, very close, intent. I mean, with intentionality. It's not as if I said flippant, passing, in observation. I've been watching this unfolding. Because I've been having some, frankly speaking, robust conversations with you guys for years now on this particular subject matter. Now it is ADC before it was PDP.
PDP,
so you can now see,
and they're still very much on the front burner.
You can see the sequence of events, from PDP, a legacy party founded in 1998, crippled from inside and outside. Now ADC, where some of them ran to, to find a new home. Coalition of forces for the progressives in the country, now on the racks. I said in this studio, particularly in this studio, maybe to you, Mokwe, that Professor Mopitan was procured and curated deliberately to perform the role he's performing by the president who brought him there. It's not like possibly some omission, some sense of we don't know what we're doing. But the first time we have an electoral act tailored to suit the specific purposes of a party and an individual. And then you have an INEC guideline. This is the mean to shut down plural democratic space and multiple party conversations in our kind of heterogeneous society. So heterogeneity of this nation is what has produced diversity of political opinions and viewpoints. That is why I find different parties represent different interests. But I find this particular INEC very scientific in its effort. Of late, a few days ago, INEC shifted the calendar a little bit more. If not, by second today, the registration process will have ended. So if you're ADC and this has happened to you, you can't even lift another party. Then they shifted it to 10th May. If you recall, 2022, and it's not different from the landscape we have in now.
Yeah, but didn't they do that because of the political party's request?
I'm saying, yes. They were compared to IPAC chairman, before he went to that meeting, said we're not going to participate in this process. It's not designed to include us, all the parties. It's designed for APC alone. So I quickly called a meeting of all the stakeholders, and they hammered home this. And chairman was bemused. He was confronted with the reality. That's why they have to shift it. If you recall 2022, presidential primaries of APC, if I'm not mistaken, was held on 7th August. Before they have the subnational, in primaries up to October, September, October. So leaving you 2-3 months of robust campaigning. Now by 30th May, everything is over. 8 months. What will INEC be doing for 8 months? From end of May to January. If not to squeeze the parties now. That's why this court order on the INEC, on the ADC, and INEC interpretation of the court decision. What they should have done, I'm not a lawyer, but I've listened to legal opinions. If appeal court rendered a judgment, and then you're confused about that judgment, or you feel somehow about that judgment, because other parties feel somehow, ADC feels, it's status quo ante, we are going to continue. And they say, possibly you're not going to continue. What do? You go back to the court. The court is not dead. You have your opinion and said, we're confused of INEC. Our party bear David Mark and so on. We don't think they should be there. Clarify what you have ruled. They've done so with Africa Supreme Court. 4 times or so, they have simply issued clarifications on their previous judgments. So the P court should have done so for INEC, not INEC becoming the court of law. Professor Chiodinka made this point. Many other brilliant lawyers have made this point. INEC may be right at the end of the day, but you have gone to the court to say, clarify this for us. They come and simply say, this is what we mean, this is our intent. But INEC now went and issued an opinion for the court and is implementing its own understanding of the viewpoint of the court or the decision of the court. That is interference in the digital process.
This is just making a case. In this particular situation, INEC has not ruled or has not given or acted in favor of any of the parties that are currently in
court. It has. Because INEC has a timetable which will not shift. Congresses and conventions of ADC will be put on hold. And the calendar will not be altered because of them. If something will take place in the next 1 week and there's vacuum in leadership, ADC will not participate. INEC has simply ruled on a matter that they shouldn't rule on. We shall come back to the court to say, this is what we think about this. The court will then now slam the hammer on whoever they want to slam the hammer on. But INEC can slam the hammer to say, ADC for now, you're not a political party in essence, without a head. You're a party without a head. That means all the processes unfolding, you will not be part of it.
Can we be
That
fair?
is consequential.
Can we be fair? Can we be fair? Okay, so you see, the thing is, let's look at the ADC itself. Can you honestly, Prof, say that the ADC had its house in order?
Let me put it this way, it depends on what they call having a house in order.
Did they have clear-cut leadership? Were they able to stand as a party and say, okay, we do not have things that can affect the legitimacy of the leadership of this party?
First and foremost, I will not speak for ADC. I'm not a member. I will speak like an informed Nigerian, like I did talk about PDP. PDP had its house in order, but the party is basically normal. ADC had its party in order. If you have your house in order here, and there's somebody, an interloper, goes to a court, already predetermined to be the judgment. Whether you have your house in order, it doesn't matter. What the court rules, we have to respect the rule of law, in quote. That means, I'm coming. That means if ADC has its house in order to say, we entered the party, we had resolutions. The old order was, when passed out away, a new order has come, and we've got documents to show this. Somebody can be asked, you are part of the old order, say no to this, even when you have said yes before. You already say no, I didn't resign. Go to court. If you go to court, that's the language now, go to court. If you go to court, somebody can go to that court and say, oh, this is what we want you to do. And if you do that, like they did with PDP. So if there's a sequence of fractionalization of SDP, they didn't have the house in order. Labour, they have the house in order. PDP, it's only APC has his house in order. All the other parties, legacy parties, all the newer parties, robust parties, inclusive parties, all do not have the house in order. I hear the PRP had a convention. So we find another convention.
But you remember, when Mr. Kachiku was saying this thing from the, and it's not just Mr. Kachiku. They have a lawmaker from the ADC, from that represents Kogi.
Abejide.
Yes, Leke Abejide.
Yeah.
They had been saying this thing for a long time, and it felt like no one was listening to what they were saying.
My point is very simple.
Now it has come.
No, my point
to
is very
fruition.
simple one. If you have no major crisis, it can be manufactured. The PDP crisis, for example, followed it sequentially from start to where it is today now. No matter however you conceive of it. Take, for example, you have a convention, a data convention of the PDP. How do you get to that convention? You have a caretaker committee. Caretaker committee, how did you produce it? Senator Manyangu wrote to INEC. People seem to forget this in the shuffle. Wrote to INEC, asking for something. INEC granted it to him. Secretary of a party, I was the secretary of a party, and the co-signatory. The chairman is a signatory like in a bank. And B, secretary cannot write to INEC. He can only concern with the chairman. But INEC accepted a letter from the secretary of the party alone. People are not talking about it. Is that letter from Manyangu that produced the caretaker? Because yes, when we came to office, he has no powers on his own as a minister of the Federal Republic, working for Bola Tinubu by the president to produce any faction. They used Anyangu's secretary, Udenta was universally accepted as the chairman. On the basis of that data, a caretaker was procured. What did they do? They went to court. And the court, like this one in ADC, said, don't do the better convention. They arrested that one. They did their own with a court permission. You have a BOT that produced by an illegal caretaker committee and a convention enthroned and accepted by INEC. So the same thing with PDP, with APC, with all the parties. That's when leaders of PDP got exhausted and said, for 2 years, 3 years, we fought not just for the survival of the party, but the survival of multi-party democracy. So the conversation we'll be holding is, why are the which is crying at night and babies dying in the morning? Why are the parties suddenly collapsing?
So who's responsible?
Because,
in your view, Prof, who's responsible for
my view?
I said
it here clearly. The ruling party APC, with all the, I talked about flatulence. Remember here, about overgorging, I talked about obesity. They swallowed up the 30-something governors, swallowed almost the National Assembly, but they have abandoned governance. That's why the country is bleeding. And when you have abandoned governance, you can't go to electoral in a field and say, I will win decisive, even with your bloated frame. You have to do something, paralyze the opposition, almost like slowly walk into a one-party democracy with minor parties, producing minor candidates. We're all Nigerians. We know what the real political conversation is all about. Yeah. We know those who see in the field, okay, there's a context. When we take down PDP, with the likes of Bala Mohammed, they still fighting gallantly. Then they take down APC, ADC, with P2B, Pambaso, Atiku, everybody else. Wouldn't you live in the field? So, normatively, you may have what they call multi-party democracy. Informed, you may have multi-party conversation. In reality, you have short the democratic space. This is part of state capture. And I said it here, the INEC, this one. Remember, every INEC chairman, without exception, suffers some debilitating loss of credibility with elections. Morris, Mahmoud, Jega, it's after the election, they say, oh, he didn't do well. A year before election, this INEC chairman has lost credibility, not just because of ADC. So do you know what's going to happen? when you have not even had election, and people are telling you, get out of your place. You have been procured and curated to serve a specific interest. That election could be meaningless. Nobody will accept it. So what you do is you have a veneer of respectability and impartiality. And again, the courts are hereby warning this from the studio. No law should be blind to the overarching environmental, political, economic, and social necessities. They don't close your eyes and say, we do not know that these are the forces in the party. That's why most of the time, even the Supreme Court, ruling on the local autonomy, undermine the Constitution. But it did it for a purpose. The Constitution is very clear. You have to have a joint account of the state and local government. He said, we have tried that, it's there, but it's not working. Let us do something novel. That novelness you find now in the political terrain is that PDP should have been preserved. You should have been left alone, dissenting with ADC now, dissenting with SDP, dissenting with Labour. This is not going to favor anybody.
It's interesting.
Down the line.
So essentially what you're saying, sir, is that there could be room for legality for what is currently happening, but that should be overridden in the overall interest of democracy.
Absolutely. That is how it is done globally, even in the US. That's why sometimes they have what they call activist judges and strict constitutionalists. They call the textualists. And those who say, no, the law shouldn't be as it was in 1776 or thereabout, or 1789. The American Constitution is a living document. Over 200 years, things have changed. Why these frameworks may not have intended this now? The realities that AI, etc., have come in to reshape this conversation. So same thing with the law now.
So what should INEC have said?
INEC should have simply left the matter as the appeal court left it. Status quo ante. That means David Mark is already there. The option is there, already there with the system.
But Nafi will be upset.
He's not there because the case is still working its way in the courts. He may get a judgment somewhere down the line. And INEC should be aware truly that it's not enough to come and say there's a faction. INEC has a robust legal department and legal contractor SANS who have studied the document. They have used something there. Does he have his factional secretary? Does he have a composite ESCO? Does he have congresses done? Does he have a membership? Nothing. Just one individual.
Well, let's just take a look.
So you look at that and say, this is not the route to go because I'm coming. This is not even helpful for INEC and the president and his team.
It is interesting that you mentioned what is currently happening. I think it was Tila who mentioned Mr. Kachiko, who was the presidential candidate of the ADC in the 2023 elections. The presidential candidate, I think he also mentioned Honorable Leke Abijide. It's unclear what is happening with him.
Whether he's suspended, whether he's still a member
of the party. But here is what Mr. Kachiko had to say. He was the presidential candidate of the ADC in the 2023 elections.
This group of mostly ex-political office holders who have held sway over the affairs of Nigeria for the last 40 years or more had attempted to register the ADA and then jump to the SDP before they gate crashed the ADC in the middle of the night. How do you explain this? Jumping from political party to political party, no ideology, no belief system, standing for nothing and believing only in the notion that power is their birthright. I regret to inform you that the actions of these men have rendered any political aspiration through the ADC a non-starter. For them to come into the ADC knowing that there's no pathway here for them means that there's a conspiracy between these men and the APC to make a fool of us all.
As the presidential candidate of the ADC in the 2023 election.
I've seen it.
And he was one of those who protested when Senator David Mark and Mr. Aregbesola took over the leadership of the party. They were clear that that takeover could not stand in the court of law.
Now, you see, here is a legacy media institution. It won African Award 13, 14 times. We're not here to prattle. I read that statement before I came here. He's a meddlesome interloper. He didn't say any single thing that is legal. He's emotional. He's rhetoric. He rhetoricizes the situation in ADC. Condemn those who took over there. We're talking about practical, concrete, legal framework and processes. We're talking about techniques, not their anger. You may be angry with them. They may be bad guys. They may not be nice guys. The point is, INEC has received documents from ADC in the past 1 year or thereabout. INEC has utilized those documents. INEC has been recognizing them. Somebody went to court and said, I do not want this to continue. The court rendered a judgment. That's what he should be addressing, not his emotional outburst against the people, who came by dead of night to do something. It is a legal thing we're dealing with here. Because the legal and the political are interfused. When you don't solve a problem politically, you go to solve it legally. I said in this studio again, The PDP crisis has metastasized from the political to the legal.
Yeah.
So once you go to the legal,
So
it is almost difficult to disentangle.
You just made a very salient point. You just made a very salient point, which is if you do not solve an issue politically, then you solve it legally. You have admitted on this program, maybe not very frontally, that if we are to go through the part of pure legalism, it is possible that those who have a grounds against the ADC do have sufficient grounds.
The point is,
do you think that the ADC got itself into hot water when they refused to solve their issues politically? Especially
the point I'm making is that don't reference the ADC alone. You see what happened during the Second World War. I can tell you why PDP even went down in flames. I don't know whether it will recover tomorrow. It may well recover. There's a poem by Neumoller. When the Nazis came for the Jews, people said, I'm not a Jew. They came for communists, I'm not a communist. They came for trade unionists, no. But now when they came for you, there was nobody around. When the same thing, convergence of state capture, all the institutions captured by the state, paralyzed by the state, judicial meddlesomeness, a matter Supreme Court has already resolved in another phase of a party for the leadership dispute, and not fundamental human rights, really, and not justifiable, however you pronounce that. So you now find where the cause become a theater where people just go there to undermine even the rule of law itself. Supreme Court has rendered judgment severally. You have a change of leadership, just basic things. It can decide.
But that's the issue. Hold on a second, Prof. Yes. That's the issue. If that change of leadership is being contested, INEC has no choice but to wait for you to sort this out.
What do you do?
They cannot take a side in the matter. Like Mark said earlier, they didn't take a side. And I know the side that you're referring to is the APC side. So my point is that within the ADC, these two factions, INEC is in a situation where, look, you have to sort this out. Because if we choose this side, we're in trouble with this side. If we pick this side, we're in trouble with this side. You have to sort this out. So we will not recognize both of you until you sort it out.
Even if you have your house in order, anybody can exploit tiny, minor capability to say, 90% your house is in order. One small percentage, a court of law that shouldn't even entertain such a matter, we say, I will entertain it. This house, the High Court that said, I will look into this, should not even look into the matter, because it has to be guided by the precedent set by the Supreme Court. That this party I'm bringing before you here is not a matter you should look into at all. You should look into other matters, but not this particular matter. Like I said, we can spend hours here dealing with it. But the fact is that INEC will do that which is convenient for those that procure the chairman. That means it is better for ADC not to be in this ballot, and then use the gap under the guise of legality and legalism and the judicial process. Because our hands are clean. This is what the court is saying. That's the point you're making. That's not the truth. The truth is that you have already a pre-existing situation in INEC with regard to ADC leadership. Like the other thing works with if this election we hold in the next 2 years, and you don't have these injunctive decisions coming before registration is closing, primary election commencing, congresses must finish, conventions, and then it was very clear. We're not going to monitor, we're not going to observe, we're not going to participate, just like in PDP. We're not going to participate in the convention, we're not going to touch it. We're waiting for another convention, even with a lower legal threshold, and you participated and uploaded. So why talk about ADC? Talk about PDP. You uploaded in your INEC portal a list of the convention, a shopping gathering, a jamboree, or some casual individuals as representing the party.
Casual individuals?
Or casual individuals.
You call the people who were gathered there casual individuals?
Everybody gathered there. It's like a beer parlor. Okay, for example, now you have here not a beer parlor. You can go to a bar and then gather your friends and make noise there. And then you want the state, Nigeria state, represented by the courts and the INEC, to accept it. I told you here, let me be fact-checked. The foundation of that caretaker committee of PDP was the letter written by someone Anyamu. He has no power under any law in the party and the constitution of the Federal Republic to write a letter to INEC, and INEC will accept it.
As secretary of the party?
No, you see, he can only co-sign with the chairman. If Damagu is offer of the letter, secretary will sign. INEC can ask Damagu, where is the secretary's signature? They cannot ask secretary, where's the chairman's signature?
So he signed.
But no, the chairman had written a letter area, Damagu, and said Anyamu will be suspended. Anyamu now wrote a letter.
Did the secretary sign that letter?
I'm making is that if you don't accept the letter from a chairman, you can't accept the one from the secretary. You don't. But what the subject of the secretary?
Wike has a briefing today.
We will see how that eventually pans out. But some people will say that the crisis within the PDP, and that maybe there's similar in the sense that all of these crises are internal. In the PDP, some people will say it was self-inflicted when the party refused to zone according to its own constitution. And from then on, it went downhill, especially when they did not manage their political shenanigans very well.
You mentioned the Minister of FCT. It has come up in this conversation. I raised it, you raised it. I want to talk about that and his role in this matter is important, except you have that already slated for me to talk about.
Very quickly, because our second guest is
yes, because I talk about it because one, he had a media chat the other day. That media chat involved Bala Mohammed. He ran with his mouth and said he's inconsistent. In public, a serving minister who is under authority of the president has repeatedly, in forum after forum, immediately committed what is called logoria, that diarrhea of the mouth.
Well, he was responding.
As a minister,
to what the governor said, he was responding.
As a minister, the president appoints a minister to serve him fully. You don't have two presidents at the same time. If you speak as a minister, you speak for the president. Hadissa Bala Ahmed, who is the person in charge of monitoring and evaluation performance, should be aware of what the minister is doing and saying. Bayo Ononuga, who is the spokesman of the president, knows that ministerial speeches must be part of the broad overall presidential communication. The chief of staff to the president knows that
the right to speak for themselves.
Because they cannot speak for themselves, they stand up by the family, except for their wife and children.
If said something about
I say he's a governor.
He was responding to what the governor said.
He's a governor who is a chief executive of a state. A minister is no chief executive. He's a servant of the president. He works at his pleasure. He can be sacked overnight. No governor can be removed and say, through due process. The president can wake up and say, I don't like your face as a minister. I remove you without reason, without warning. You speak for the president. So Oyesonwike Wike has been speaking for the president, which is very troubling. So today, I'm going to have this glorious one to say to the president and his team, he's embarrassing, his flippant nature, his sense of logoria, he's even violating the oath of secrecy and allegiance. He cannot communicate presidential messages outside without authorization. And there are 3 key officials in that villa, as I said, Hadissa, Bayo Ononuga, spokesman and strategist for the president, and the chief of staff, must hold him accountable. If you don't hold him accountable, next time we have this conversation, we then now take on the president. It is not about Bala Mohammed and Wike, his integrity, his honor, who is considered in PDP up to now and said, I'm still battling for the soul of my party. Or another leader who is from the PDP, was working for APC, a minister of Federal Republic, not a small minister with humongous budget, is serving the interest of an APC president and wants to restore him in office in 2027. And you are claiming to be PDP. That's the worst inconsistency. That's the worst moral atrophy anybody can commit. It is important we deposit this today in a measured tone. So next time you call me on this matter, I will not go after Oyesonwike as a minister because it's irrelevant in this conversation. It's not an autonomous political force. We go after the president and his team who are not doing the due diligence in holding him to account, in respecting the boundaries of his office and making sure that it does not embarrass the president repeatedly.
All right, Professor, we have to thank you so much for your interventions on all of the matters that we have brought before you. And I know that you speak in the interest of democracy
Absolutely.
Overall. And I think that is all we are also concerned about, keeping our democracy alive. We've been speaking with Professor Udenta. Udenta is the founding national secretary of the Alliance for Democracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.